And how do you feel about that duck lip look that a lot of the women are getting? You
So
like it?
no, I don't. We actually have an entire like shift right now in the market that we're actually seeing a lot of people coming in and getting dissolved. So that kind of look that was in with the Kylie Jenner and the Kardashian look, like while people, I mean, I love them, whatever, but like, there is a certain point where we kind of have to stop injecting people. And so we're feeling that a little bit where we're almost seeing like a decrease in filler. So instead of people getting 12 syringes, they're getting three. And we're also doing a lot of reversal in lips specifically.
Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Isaacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming on Success of a Hot Mess podcast. Today I've got Megan Smith on the show. Thank you for coming, Megan.
Thank you for having me.
So, Megan, you're the COO and co-founder of the CosMedic Solution. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, absolutely. I've been in the aesthetic industry for the last forever, basically over 15 years. I was with a Fortune 500 company where I was a global sales trainer and sales director, and pivoted to start my own company with my business partner, where we work on aesthetic practices. We work with consulting, business building, revenue, training new injectors to inject Botox and fillers and all of the fun stuff we love. And then we also have the emotional intelligence side. I'm a certified EQ and leadership coach. And so I did that at my time at Allergan, which was amazing. And now I kind of am taking that over to not just other companies of dermal fillers and toxins, but private equity world, DSO groups. We're really learning that, EQ goes beyond the aesthetic industry, and most Fortune 500 companies utilize some of that. So that's kind of our main focus going into 2025.
Awesome. So I noticed that the name of the company, the CosMedic Solution, it's not cosmetic like with a T, like
Yes,
cosmetics.
it's with a
So
D. Yeah.
okay. So you're focused on the fillers,
Yeah,
that kind of
it's a
stuff?
mix, right? We work with that medical professional, so that's kind of been our book of business. I would say 90% for the last 2 years. This year, though, I will say the last few months has shifted where I'm getting more inquiries about EQ coaching, regardless outside of the medical scope. So we're looking, like I said, private equity, either smaller companies to any business, whether it's a gas station, a car dealership, or a plastic surgeon. It's using the same techniques and coaching skills to help build that culture and communication style.
Okay. So you're helping build the businesses, like let's say my law firm. You help build a
Yeah,
firm culture.
yes, we look at culture, we look at communication style. I'm doing a big EQ boot camp with a Fortune 500 company in December and January with their whole sales force. So we're actually doing silent surveys. We look at what the culture is currently, where it needs to be, and then we coach the leaders, VPs, CEOs, directors on how to really create that culture from the ground up, and then how we can put it into practice throughout the rest of the year. So it's not just a one-time show where it's shoved down, people's throat and then it never gets brought up again throughout the year. It's really about integrating that into the culture. So,
Okay. So tell me how you made that jump. Those are two very different things, right?
yeah.
Working at Allergan and now emotional
Yeah, well,
coaching.
so
So,
part of I was there at Allergan for over 10 years, and part of that was I was a global sales trainer. And so I was actually certified there in EQ and leadership. So I was fortunate enough to travel all around the country and teach EQ and leadership, not only to our sales directors, VPs at Allergan, but also our top practices across the country. And so that really sparked my interest in this whole EQ world. And it's fundamentally changed my life. It's changed how I do business. It's changed how I manage teams. And after that, I became one of the youngest directors in the company, living in New York City, managing a $30 million book of business. And I loved that. And it was 2.5 years of managing that I was like, I really want to go on my own. And then again, the EQ thing just comes back. So I love helping people in any business, or professionally or personally, to help achieve their goals and rebuild the culture.
So can a company that is outside of Florida utilize your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with companies, practices, you name it, from California. We're working with one company specifically in Canada. We have some practices in London. So yeah, we're kind of seeing it go beyond the scope of just aesthetics and medical professionals, and actually go into anyone that is really looking for EQ. So we're kind of in the middle of a little bit of a rebrand, and that's how I met Armando, and really looking to see how we can utilize the EQ world and the coaching in a way that's fun, because that's another thing. If you've ever been through these courses, it's brutal sometimes. And so we try to take a different stance on it and make it really fun and engaging to where people actually want to take their coaching and take themselves to the next level.
That's awesome. Can you explain to the listener what is EQ?
Yeah. So emotional intelligence, for short, we say EQ. And it's really the ability to manage and regulate your own emotions and the emotions of others, to be able to communicate more effectively. It helps in any crisis situation. It helps communication style, manage teams. It helps build culture. And it's really that self-regulation, because the base of emotional intelligence starts with self-awareness, and it really starts with understanding how you feel, being able to identify those emotions so that you can hopefully go into the self-management phase, meaning we're not yelling and screaming at people, we're able to control, and then so go into social awareness and relationship management. And so it's 4 quadrants that make it up, but it's really the 3 things that make up a person shine, right, is IQ, personality, and EQ. And we can't really change a person's IQ, can't change a personality sometimes. I always joke, that's why I'm still single, because I keep trying to change personalities. But we can change EQ. EQ is a muscle that we can actually build. And so it is coachable. And so I've taken the test over and over and over again over the last 12 plus years. And it's amazing how you can actually grow in EQ. So in a nutshell.
So you mentioned that you're single. Do you find that your success in business sometimes scares off potential love interests?
I mean, it depends on who you're asking. I would probably say yes, based on what other people have said. However, I think that it's an excuse. I think you're married, but you're in South Florida, so you kind of know the dating scene here is a little tough. So yeah, I think being self-aware too, and kind of not even the business thing. I think it's more about the EQ thing and knowing what I want and what I don't want, and being vocal about that. I think that can sometimes come off different, because not everybody is able to kind of manage and understand those emotions. So yeah, I don't think it's helping me any, but the right one won't care, right? That's what I keep telling myself.
That's true. It's probably like a psychologist. Like, let's say she's dating, and her potential dates probably think that they're being sized up constantly.
Yeah. I try
Probably
not to
something
lead
similar.
with the EQ coaching situation, but again, try to make it, fun. But yeah, I think any strong female is having. I know so many beautiful, strong, amazing, smart women that are single right now, and no matter where they live, and so it's a tough world out there right now. So yeah,
It is, but now there's social media, there's ways to like look people up or reconnect with people,
yes, I know.
and all the apps that are out there, they didn't have any of that when I was dating.
You were lucky. You don't want any of that. That's what I keep saying. I
Okay.
wish we could go back to like the old school, just meeting people organically, having that connection, because that's kind of what we teach too. Is emotional intelligence is really about not only having a deeper connection with yourself and understanding yourself, but also deeper connections with others. And I kind of miss those organic conversations and connections of meeting people randomly. So I wish we could go back, but
Yeah, and even not just romantic, but like friendships, It's like I
exactly.
watch my daughters, they can communicate like by Snapchat with kids, and then you get them all in a room and it's awkward.
Well, they're all on their phone. They're all like, no one's talking, and that's kind of, I think, yeah, a huge issue and a huge shift in what we're going to see over the next 10 years. And part of a talk that I do is called "The Connection is the New Currency," and it kind of talks about how technology coming in, whether it's AI or the apps, all those things are actually hindering people from having actual genuine connections and conversations, and how if we want to shift out of that and be a game changer in whatever company and workforce, or even regardless relationships, we have to learn to like have those conversations and actually connect instead of hiding behind an email and a photo and the apps.
I agree. Do you ever, you're coaching a business on their culture. Do you ever have to say to the owners, like, listen, this employee that you have, like, they're uncoachable, they're not a culture fit?
Yes, we've had those. It's not my favorite conversation, but I always say we have to find the mold, right? Like what happens when we find mold, and especially in South Florida, if we don't get rid of it, it spreads. So we have to find that. And so sometimes the more interesting conversations are the ones that it's actually the owner's problem. Like they're actually the mold and they're the toxic ones and they're the ones that actually have to change. Those are, I love, because at the end of the day, like we now found the problem. The question is, can we fix it? And we've been able to. I would say about 80% of the time, with the exception of a few plastic surgeons, are able to kind of really fix that and look internally. But yeah, of course, we find it a lot with businesses, with people that have been there a long time, and they've gotten used to literally just that same behavior, and no one's coached them. So they've been at that company for 10 years, acting the same way, getting away with what they've been doing. And yeah, at some point we have to be like, either this is the new culture, this is our new style. If you don't fit in this, no worries. We'll write you the best recommendation letter out there, but we have to go. It's not the right fit. And it's not fun, but I think me being solution oriented, I love when we find it, because then we can actually move forward, as opposed to I'm still digging like a forensic accountant and I can't find where the bleed is. Like that's tougher because it takes a lot longer to fix that culture, versus if I'm in there working with them for 2 weeks, I can probably immediately know that who's the issue.
So I don't want to come across as like sexist or not pro women, but yeah. My law firm, for whatever reason, it is like 98% women. So if you have 40 employees and they are predominantly women, we do find a lot of issues amongst the women. Do you see it as a gender thing, or
it's so interesting that you say that, because it depends, right? But studies show that females are actually more coachable regarding emotional intelligence and culture shifts. They are typically the ones in the audience that come up to me after a talk. They are the ones that will book a one-on-one with me. They are the ones that they don't ask about case studies. They connect immediately and say, I know exactly what you're saying. I either need to change, the people around me need to change, versus a lot of males tend to just care about stats and numbers. And having high EQ makes an extra $30,000 a year, right? People that have high EQ are more successful, they're healthier, they're happier. We all know that, right? But the men, typically in my situation, is the opposite of kind of what you're dealing with. So with women, we might have a little bit more drama, a little bit more outspokenness, but sometimes the culture shifts can happen a lot faster because women tend to be more adaptable to change, versus males that are not an emotional mindset and they just think in bullet points and stats, and they don't necessarily care enough to make those shifts, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. That's interesting. Now, how do I know if I have good or high EQ?
So there's certain tests that you can take. It's also, at the end of the day, I think it's when you look at, like, we have the 4 quadrants, and I always ask, from self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management, what's your strength and what's your area of opportunity? And when people say to me, oh, I think I'm good at all of them, I'm like, so self-awareness is your quadrant that you're
Your
not good with,
weakness.
right? So it's immediately understanding that. And it's also knowing that the highest, like my EQ is not at 100%. No one's is. Like that doesn't exist, right? It's seasons. If you're having a tough year emotionally, you're going through a divorce or a breakup, or you have a kid's, stress, like all of that shifts into how your EQ is. And so there are some months that your EQ is amazing, and then there's others that it might be a little bit down. But the whole point of this is acknowledging that we can change and get better, and making that choice every day to like show up. And so if you can say that you're doing that, another thing would be survey your staff. We have an amazing silent survey system that we use that's actually untraceable. So when we go in, and right now I'm polling 200 sales reps, and it's completely anonymous. So I can't even tell who it came from. The deliverables are, so I'm able to scan that spreadsheet quickly, and it can assess that culture from a third party perspective. And then we go in with the CEOs and kind of dial it down to them, but we don't allow them to see the comments. We filter everything. But if you are a business owner, doing some sort of a silent survey and actually having your staff and your teams understand that we have to have crucial conversations in order to get shit done and get things moving. That's the only way we're going to move as an organization, regardless, right? And so it's worth it to have those conversations and have them. So that's the first step, I always say. And if you're asking yourself those questions, you probably have a great, like decent check on EQ. And it's just kind of fine tuning things that you could probably do better as a leader, right?
Plastic surgeons are a funny bunch. I've been to a few.
Yeah.
In fact, I have Allergan product in my body.
I love it. My whole face and body is Allergan, so we go way back. Yeah.
So there was my very first plastic surgery. I went to this doctor, and he had awards on the wall that said like most compassionate doctor in such and such county, and I really, really liked the bedside manner. And I had to come back a few years later because something wasn't quite to my liking.
Right.
And I was watching how he was treating the nurse that he works with, and it was like downright, I was so uncomfortable in the room, the way he was speaking to her and everything. And when he left the room, I said to her, like, is this an off day? I mean, he was the most compassionate doctor. She's like, no, like plastic surgeons have like God complexes. It was like somewhat disappointing. I didn't return to him.
Yeah. So I love that. I mean, listen, I will say that the way that a plastic, and I think this is most physicians, right? Plastics are different in their own right. I know some amazing ones, and I know ones that they could be the best surgeon in the world. I don't want to be under on their table, right? Because their bedside manner might be good, but I always ask, how are you treating your staff, and what happens when the patient's not in the room? So for you to witness that as a patient, can you imagine how he treats people behind closed doors? Wild.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's really, so sorry, there's construction happening in my apartment, okay. So apologies. But yeah, so for me, I think that you look beautiful and gorgeous, and I think a lot of plastics are fantastic. But there's a lot that do have that kind of God complex, and we see that a lot with, no offense, powerful men in general. Being in the private equity sector too, I almost think it's 10 times worse, because I'm dealing with 28-year-old finance bros who think that they're like Jesus, and then it's like wild. And so it's different. I think powerful men who have money in general tend to kind of be a little cumbersome and harder to move the needle on.
Yeah. And then the next time I went there for some sort of follow-up, that nurse was no longer there, and I was like, I guess she had had enough. But basically his response to me, instead of just acknowledging that the job was not, it was like 75%, it was just like, well, your expectations for perfection are unmeetable, that kind of thing.
It's like,
so
wow.
I find plastic surgeons in particular to be,
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's a tough crowd. It's not everyone's vibe. I find them hard to deal with, and I know them, and I've been working with them for years.
Megan, what do you do when you are not busy working?
Love to travel. I typically
Oh, I did.
try.
I saw your Instagram. You've taken some phenomenal trips. I saw
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Yes, I love to travel. I briefly had a travel agency in like 2019 and then obviously with 2020, but I love to travel. It's something that I love to do. If I'm not home, I'm typically somewhere else. But work has been insane, so that's kind of my main thing. Hanging out with my friends and family from New Orleans originally, but I live in Miami now, so there's a plethora of things to do. Working out, enjoying the beautiful day. Hopefully the weather stays like this. But yeah, that's kind of it. So it's a lot of work, as you know, kind of having your own company and your own thing. There's not a lot of free time. So sometimes I have to actually leave the state or the country in order to shut down because it's the only time my phone's not blowing up, which is a good thing. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a champagne problem.
I know, right? Exactly.
Definitely.
I'm like, we're fine. We can go away, somewhere where the phones don't work for a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's funny you say New Orleans just because I'm from New Jersey, but there were two colleges that I was going to make a decision on. It was Miami or Tulane.
Oh,
And
wow.
I went and visited Miami and I never made it to Tulane because I was like, this place, it can't get more beautiful.
It can't get more beautiful. You made the right choice. I love New Orleans, but I'm from there. My whole family's there. I love Tulane. I went to LSU, but I think you did the right
You
thing.
think?
Yeah. I love Miami. I've lived in New York, Miami, West Palm. I've been back and forth since I graduated college into some level of South Florida. So for me, I kind of agree with you. I came and visited like once or twice, and I'm like, okay, probably gonna stick.
Especially for aesthetics, I feel like the industry would be hotter here.
It's
I don't know.
everywhere. I mean, the problem is with here is that there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of people doing things and there's a lot of people that are doing things the wrong way, especially in Miami. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen the things in Brickell where there's like ORs in like the apartments and people are just doing stuff
Yeah,
in
I mean,
garages. It's so wild. So,
I used to watch Botched.
yeah, yeah. Like a lot of that happens down here. And then you also have a lot of people that live here that will travel back to South America to get things done. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. So while South Florida is great, it's also a very tricky place in the market. And for newer plastics or derms, anyone in the aesthetic industry trying to make a name for themselves here that's new is really difficult. It's like you got to go inland, go to the other side of the state, go to Tampa, like go to like
Yeah.
the suburbs and where it's not overly saturated yet because Miami has kind of hit its max on injectors. It's like we're good. Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you feel about that duck lip look that a lot of the women are getting? You
So
like it?
no, I don't. We actually have an entire like shift right now in the market that we're actually seeing a lot of people coming in and getting dissolved. So that kind of look that was in with the Kylie Jenner and the Kardashian look, like while people, I mean, I love them, whatever, but like, there is a certain point where we kind of have to stop injecting people. And so we're feeling that a little bit where we're almost seeing like a decrease in filler. So instead of people getting 12 syringes, they're getting 3. And we're also doing a lot of reversal in lips specifically because
And a lot of people are actually removing their breast implants.
I know the explant surgery has been huge. I am not on that train. I also like I'm very much about like, dissolving old filler and all of that. And I think if you have health problems, for sure, explant surgery has been proven to work for a lot of people, but I also know a lot of people that have implants that are totally healthy and fine. So, I think
I also know people who have had the explant surgery and they still have whatever symptoms.
exactly. I know. It's
So,
really hard until you have that happen and you actually go through it. You really don't know kind of what it is. I also feel like too, it's kind of a mind thing where you kind of sold yourself on an idea and that's it. But again, I'm for all the surgery and all the things that you want, whatever makes you look and feel better, but within reason, right? Within reason. We want to be tasteful with what we do.
I agree.
Fine line.
Lastly, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone wanting to start their own business?
Gosh, I mean, coming from corporate, it's been challenging for me the last few years. I would say, depending on your background, being an entrepreneur doesn't mean that you're a leader. The two don't meet. So if your goal is to be an entrepreneur and your goal is to build wealth in whatever aspect that you want, that is amazing. However, if your goal is to manage teams and have them build your wealth, then you need to understand how to not just be an entrepreneur and a CEO, but you need to be able to understand how to be a leader, because that's the difference of good companies and great companies. And it's the leadership, and it is how you train your people under you to be hunters and multipliers, but also have that culture where they care about the company as much as you do. And that is what I tried to create at Allergan. That's what I try to create now. And that's what we teach others to try to create. So it's great to be a CEO, great to be an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean you're a leader. And so kind of taking that and understanding that those are two separate things, and where do you want to be in that, is probably the first question I would ask. And if you're going to build a team, take a step back and look internally and do some courses that will help you build the best team possible, because it's only going to help you in the long run. So
Yeah, I have seen that firsthand. I mean, I went to law school. I have no HR background, and then having to deal and be a leader when there is a lot of drama, and it's been
it's a lot.
Educational. Let's say
Yeah.
that.
I mean, you get an MBA in all of this. Like, I mean, as a business owner, like if you have a team under you, even if it's 2 people or 25 people, like I always say, you get a degree in HR after that, because you really learn your strengths and areas of opportunity. And so my other thing is, we can't control how everyone else is, but we can control how we are and how we show up every day. And so if we can just have that mindset, hopefully the others around us will follow. So
if a listener does want your EQ coaching services, how can they find you?
Yep. So you can email Megan, MEGAN, at the CosMedic, CosMedic Solution.com, or you can reach out directly. I'll just give my cell if it's easier. 504-228-8809. The 877 line goes to that number anyway. So I would love to help anyone on their journey, large and small, on EQ and building teams and cultures. Because at the end of the day, it makes your life a lot easier. It gives you a sense of sanity, but it also long-term, from a profit perspective, your teams are going to be better and they're going to make more money. So short-term and long-term benefits. So,
yeah, it sounds like a good deal to me.
You're gorgeous and perfect, and I love
you too.
It's so amazing to
you.
chat with like-minded. So, and what you're doing is fantastic. I think it's awesome. So,
thank you so much, Megan. Good to meet you. Thanks for coming on.
Of course. Have a great going, guys. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.